1 in 4 people that are bringing their cars into dealerships right now to trade them in are underwater on their vehicles. The average amount that consumers with negative equity have right now is over $6,700. And CarMax right now is preparing for a storm. They're putting so much money back to help them cover all the losses that they're going to take from people not paying their bills. I want to tell you some crazy stats. I want you to let these numbers sink in. And the thing about negative equity is it's not been rare in the car market. There's always been people that come in and trade in their cars and have lots of negative equity. The problem is right now the amount. So the amounts are too much for these dealerships to overcome. Usually dealers can just roll over that negative equity into the next car, or they can lease a lot of these consumers out of it. But when you have these consumers that are coming in with $10,000, $15,000 of negative equity and trying to get into their next car, well, there are no strings that these dealerships can pull. And in a lot of cases, they say, okay, well, you got $8,000, $9,000 of negative equity. Well, what are you going to do about paying that down? And these consumers, they don't have any money. Most Americans right now don't even have $500 in their savings account to be able to cover an emergency. So absolutely, they don't have that $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 to be able to cover this amount to make these loans whole so they can get into their next car. So what happens? Well, they're just not going to be a buyer. They're pulled out of the system. They can't trade in their vehicle, and that means that I can't get their trade in. And we have CarMax. So I like to look at CarMax because they're the largest used car dealer in the nation, and I like to see what they do to prepare for what they think's coming. I like to see what cars they're buying, how much they're selling them for, what kind of profit margins they're making. But more importantly right now, what I like to see is how much are they preparing for people to not actually pay their car payments. And what we've seen is that they've greatly increased their loan loss provisions, and what that means is that they're actually putting money back, preparing for people to not make their car payments. And this is a massive sign that we can look at coming from CarMax, largest used car dealer in the US. And if they are preparing for people to not pay them for their actual cars, well, how do you think it sets up for the rest of the car market? These are signs that we can look at from a place like CarMax, because they have lots and lots of money, lots and lots of people that are tracking all of this data. And what they're seeing right now is that people are not making their car payments, and they're going to have to repo a lot of their cars. They're putting so much money back to prepare for this right now. And a lot of these consumers that foolishly paid way too much for these cars, got into loans that they couldn't afford, got way upside down on these vehicles, well, the ones that are able to actually trade in and then roll that negative equity into the next car, well, they're just making the situation worse. So on average right now, people who are rolling negative equity into their new car, they're paying on average over $900 a month for this new vehicle. And just to give you a reference point, the average monthly payment on a new car right now is still crazy, but it's $700, roughly around that price point. And so you can see that these people that have already made unwise decisions, they're just digging themselves a bigger and wider hole. Because I would assume a lot of these people that are actually getting to the situation, they're probably not all that well off to begin with for them to be in this hole to begin with. So now they're just adding an extra $200 on top of what they already were paying for that new car, and just making the situation so much worse for themselves. And it's not only that they're just increasing their monthly payments because they have to roll this negative equity, but they're also paying more for the next car that they're buying. It's not like they're tearing down on cars to try to pull down their monthly payment, or even have something that's like kind of straight across the line so they can try to figure themselves out, or trying to get themselves out of the hole. They're paying on average $12,000 more for the next car. So this is just an easy scenario where we can see like the Keeping Up with the Joneses kind of reference that you hear about, where, okay, somebody has this, they want something better, so they upgrade, they keep upgrade, and what's happening with these people that are dealing with this underwater situation right now is they're still underwater. Their financial situation as far as their car goes hasn't gotten any better, but they're even making it worse by buying a more expensive car, upping their amount of payment, and getting even farther underwater. Because 2-3 years from now, when the people who want to keep up with the Jones are wanting to trade in for their next car because they want to keep that brand new car every 3 to 4 years, well, when they trade in again, they're going to be even further underwater on their cars. And at some point, the train has to stop. where these consumers that want to trade in their car every 3 years, keep the car market rolling, well, they're not going to be able to do it, because now sometimes they can get around trading in and having $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 of negative equity. But if it gets to the point 3 years from now they have $20,000 of negative equity, they're not going to be able to come up with that difference. So they're just going to be denied for that car, and then they are no longer going to be able to be buyers in the car market. So 1 in 4 people right now that are bringing in their cars to dealerships right now are actually underwater on their trade-ins. Now, this affects the whole car market, but I can tell you, I'm a used car dealer. I sell cars that are $5,000 and under, that this really affects me as a used car dealer, because it affects the kinds of cars and the amount of cars that are actually going to these used car dealer auctions. Now, how I buy my cars and how I get cars on my lot to sell is by going to these used car dealer auctions, bidding on them, but where those cars come from are from trade-ins into new car dealerships. And here's the thing, if we have all of these consumers that are now coming in, 1 out of every 4, 25%, that are coming in to these dealerships and they are underwater, well, a lot of these transactions are not occurring. And if these trade-ins don't get into these new car dealers, well, that affects the kind of cars that I'm able to buy at these auctions. And what I'm hearing from a lot of sales managers, what I'm hearing from GMs, what I've heard from a lot of salespeople at a lot of these car dealerships is that there are a lot of vehicles, a lot of sales that aren't happening because these customers have to get turned away. See, look at these cars that are behind me right here. These are cars that we have in our recon process. These are cars that we just brought at auction. What's happening at auctions right now is there are fewer cars actually coming through the system, fewer cars that I can buy, making my wholesale prices higher than what they should be, because these transactions from these people that are trying to trade in their cars are not happening, and it affects the whole ecosystems through the car market. Another thing that it can affect me by is that the quality of cars is actually going down, because you have people that are no longer trading in their cars that usually do it every 3 or 4 years because they have so much negative equity. They can't trade them in. They have $10,000, $15,000 of negative equity on their vehicles. Well, there's no strings that a lot of these dealerships can pull. So people are only trading in their cars now for a lot of cases because they have to and not because they want to. They don't want to upgrade and then roll that negative equity and then have to pay that extra payment, that extra amount on top of their monthly payment. So a lot of these cars that I'm getting through the system, well, the quality can be lower. The amount of cars going through the system is lower. Prices for quality used cars is going up. And if this situation continues to get worse, well, it's going to continue to get worse on my end for the cars that I'm able to buy. And this is something that I worry greatly for my dealership, and something that I'm going to have to deal with. I'm going to have to plan for. It might mean that I have to go to more auctions on a weekly basis to be able to find the quality cars that I'm able to actually sell to my consumer. Because remember, my cars that I'm buying and selling, they're $5,000 and under. They're not that mid-tier car that you buy at auction from $5,000 to $15,000. There's plenty of those. People trade in those cars like crazy. These lower end cars that I buy, the stuff that I can buy and sell for $3,500, for $4,000 or $5,000. It's hard. It's very hard for us to buy those. And if the amount of cars goes down at auction, even more than what it is right now, and the quality continues to go down at auction, it makes my job very, very, very hard. So I've got my little note card pulled out here because I want to tell you some crazy stats and just want you to let these numbers sink in. So the average amount that someone is actually upside down in their car right now is $6,700. $6,754 to be exact. But here's the crazy part. 1 in 4 consumers that are upside down in their car, they're upside down over $10,000. And even crazier, 7.7% of people out there that have negative equity are over $15,000 upside down in their vehicles. That is insane, and this is the worst that we have ever seen it. And this is why we're having this repo crisis. This is why we're having this auto loan crisis, the defaults that we're seeing in the market. And I know from doing my research, seeing that credit card companies are also feeling this similar type of pinch. So what's happened? Well, people spent over the last 3 to 5 years way more than they had, and I don't know if it's a cultural shift, what has happened, but with the amounts that prices have gone up in the car market, people have continually just said yes to these prices, and they have bought them by any means necessary. And you can see it right here in the numbers that the any means necessary is that people have taken out loans that they absolutely could not afford. And these loan terms got stretched out so far that it takes them years and years and years just to get caught up with how much they owe on these vehicles. Over $15,000, about 10% of all people buying cars. That's absolutely insane for them to have over $15,000 in negative equity on those vehicles. What's going to happen 3, 4, 5 years from now when those cars start actually breaking down? Because that's what happens with cars. Even with cars that are I was going to say as reliable as possible, but cars that are built now, we're seeing that they often break down more than the cars that we've been buying over the last 10, 15, 20 years. So what's going to happen now when these customers are still $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 upside down 3, 4 years from now, and then things start breaking down on these cars? Well, we might have the situation where a customer looks at that, they're like, you know what, I owe so much money on this car, and now I have to pay so much money on this car to get it fixed. And even when I fix it, I'm going to still be that much money in the hole on this vehicle. What's to stop them from just walking away from their car? This is a concern for a lot of these banks, for a lot of these auto lenders that they're going to have to deal with 3 years from now, 4 years from now, because these cars, I can promise you, I deal with cars every single day. Cars break, and they can do it without any warning. So if these customers are already over their head, they already owe too much, their cars aren't worth anything, but they still owe this crazy amount of money on it, why would they not just let it get repoed? Who cares? I mean, I'm not going to put any more money into it. I already owe so much money into it. What are they going to do? And just to show you that this is actually happening with these type of people, is that, okay, the average amount of years that they keep their car before they trade it in is 3.8 years. And this seems like lunacy to me. So how do you avoid this? Well, you don't be one of those people. How do you create wealth? How do you get yourself out of holes? How do you not have debt? Well, you don't keep on doing the same things that put you in debt, that put you in a bad financial situation year after year after year. Every 3 years, these people are trading in their cars and making their situation worse. So if you don't want your situation to be worse, well, don't do it. Why don't you buy a car that you can freaking afford? And I'm not talking about you can afford the payment. Doesn't matter if you can afford the payment. I mean, some of these loans that they're writing are for 9 years on a car. That's absolutely insane. Don't be one of those people. Buy a car that you can actually afford, that you can actually pay cash for. Don't fall into this debt trap of buying, and some people call it an asset. This is a liability. Don't borrow money on things that go down in value. That is how you destroy your wealth.